Hey everybody, I'm Lindsay Ferrier with CafeMom, and this morning we're here at the CNN Grill for our HLN CafeMom panel. This time we're talking to Democrat moms. First we've got Stephanie Himel-Nelson, who is a military mom. We have Linnie Bailey, who's a delegate, and we have Ilina Ewen, who is a blogger with The Stir. We're going to hear everything that they have to say about the upcoming convention.
Okay, ladies, all the speeches, Michelle Obama, President Obama, other key speeches. Do you want to hear social issues? If so, what are the social issues you want to hear?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I want to hear
absolutely.
social issues. I want to hear them talking about what they're going to do for regular families. Families like mine, families with kids who don't have $1 billion to go out and hire a nanny. I want to hear how they're going to help put the economy back on track. That's what I want to hear.
And we want
specifics. We want specifics. I mean, 12 million jobs. How? How are you going to do that? We want more specifics as to how they're going to move the economy forward, how it's going to affect my family, families like mine.
I really am interested to hear more about education. I think if we're really going to be a country of 21st century learners, and how are we going to populate these jobs, and how are we going to take care of our kids?
What about abortion, Planned Parenthood? Do those issues matter to you?
Of course, of course. I support a woman's right to choose, and I'm very concerned that we're not moved back to the 1950s, that we go forward. I have a daughter, and I want her to have that right to choose, and I expect to hear more about that, and I think I will.
I think it's also a matter of hijacking the issue of women's health, focused only on abortions. Planned Parenthood does so much more than provide contraception and abortions to women, and I think that we're letting other people hijack that conversation, and we need to continue to focus more on women's health and not just the abortion discussion.
It's interesting because we're hearing these same issues across the board. I mean, we heard this last week with Republican women. We're hearing it now with Democratic women. I think that these are American issues at this point.
Ask a question. Go for it, Lindsay.
Well, let's talk about some of these American issues. I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about is that you feel like politicians don't necessarily know what it's like for women these days. What do you think about that? Linnie.
They don't know my story. They don't know my kids' story. In my suburban neighborhood in Riverside County, they're conservative, they're liberal, but the mothers, we have the same issues. We're taking care of parents, we're taking care of children, we're taking care of the community, we're doing all the volunteer work. Our stories aren't reflected at all.
Well, I'm from a military family, so my story is a little bit different. And I feel like my story isn't really heard and understood very well either. I mean, politicians like to use this as a nice backdrop, but there are a lot of serious issues, some fallout from the war.
Such as?
Mental health, suicide prevention. We have soldiers coming back with PTS and traumatic brain injury. And those are our families are going to need support. Those are some serious issues, and I want to hear something about that.
And for me, I'm from a family that immigrated to this country, and I wasn't born here. I came when I was a baby, and my children are first generation American. And that's a really big deal, and I think that's something that we're not celebrating anymore. We're so focused on this typical white male sense of nationalism, and that we're forgetting what our country is made of. If you look around this room where we are right now, and we have people of all walks of life, and that's what makes us all inherently American.
If you look at the polls, Michelle Obama is still more popular than her husband. Why is that?
She's fabulous.
She's not president.
She is.
From my personal standpoint, she's done so much for military families. She's really made them her issue. And I just think she's a very classy lady.
And even her health initiatives as far as nutrition, when she first started talking about give up the sodas, I was, But now we're really looking at nutrition and thinking, yeah, we do have to eat better. Our kids have to eat better. So we have banned sodas. And that's because of her. So I think that's working.
Ilina?
And she's a mom. I think she's a mom that we can relate to. She's not the mom who had nannies and childcare. She talks about the struggle of being a family of two full-time parents. You see her being affectionate with her family, and it's not staged. I think there's something that we can all relate to about that.
Well, I think that obviously women are still strong Michelle Obama supporters, but we're seeing a lot of women now who were big Obama supporters in 2008 and now aren't sure if they're going to vote for him or even if they're going to vote at all. My question for you ladies, why are you still here? Why are you still supporting Obama in 2012?
In my community, among the moms in our community, things have gotten better. There's still a lot of people out of work. There's still a lot of people wondering, well, what are we going to do next month? But for the most part, things have gotten better. I do see him as the one that will move us forward. I'm very concerned about moving back to the 1950s in terms of civil rights, in terms of voting rights, in terms of women's rights. So I do see him as a candidate that will move us forward.
The president has, again, done so much for military families and veterans. He's done that more than any president in recent history. And, you know, that's such a serious issue, and that's why I'm here, really. I mean, he's doing something.
For me, I'm idealistic to a fault, and I think that he represents my ideals. He cares about women's issues because he's raising 2 young daughters. It is clear that he's passionate about education. He knows what that has afforded him in his life, and I think that he's got a good pulse on reality in America because he has seen different sides of this country and not just the silver spoon side.
Linnie, let me ask you, the African American community has been disappointed in Obama because he got rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I'm talking in particular black clergy, and also his stance now supporting gay marriage. They don't agree with the president on those issues, but they stay Democrat. Why?
Because we look at how the Republican Party seems to be hijacked by its right wing, and they're not reflective of our community or our children or anything that's going on in America as far as I'm concerned. And we do, as I said, we see him as the person who can move our country forward. And you're not going to agree with everything that anybody says. But there is support for gay marriage within the black community. And there is support for most of his policies within our community. So he will keep our support. And it's not just because he's black, it's because of the issues. He understands the importance of a safety net. He understands working families. That's our feeling. That's why we support him.
In 2008, Obama got the youth vote, African American vote. I mean, he got them so excited about the process and so engaged. Do you think African Americans who have been disappointed with their first black president will still get out and vote for him?
I don't think the disappointment is as high as it's being reported. The support is still there. We're gonna vote as long as there aren't voter issues out there that prevent us from voting, and there is a lot of concern about that we may be going back to a Jim Crow era where we're not allowed to vote. So we'll be out there. Not only that, we're going to be registering people. Those of us with college-age children, we're pushing them, and they're starting to pay attention now. We'll be out there.
Ilina, what about the immigrant community? Do you feel like President Obama has done enough with immigration, or has it been too little too late?
Well, I think the immigrant community, the focus in the United States right now is only on Hispanic immigrants. And I think we forget about the legions of immigrants that have come from all over the world to study in America. You look around rural communities and many of those physicians are Indian doctors. And I think that we as immigrants are serving needs in this country that people overlook, that they take for granted. And I think there becomes a sense of you have to choose. Are you American or are you Indian? And I recently have had a friend tell me I should go back to my home country, and because she and I don't share the same politics. And that's just appalling to me. I think that immigrants are what have built this country, and we owe a lot of gratitude and a lot of debt to the people who continue to come here and want to come here to study, to build their lives here for their kids. So the immigrant issue is more than just the Hispanic community.
And do you feel like President Obama is doing enough?
I don't think that he's necessarily spoken to that issue. It's not really an issue that is on our national radar at all.
With so much focus on the female vote, on the women, on family, is Bill Clinton the man that should take the stage and represent the Democratic Party and support Obama, the man that obviously cheated on his wife a number of times?
We forgive. We forgive.
You're all raising daughters.
We forgive, and we do understand that all have sinned. However, Bill Clinton's times were prosperous times. And that's what he's going to talk about, Obama's plan to keep going and not going back to where we were. So I think he'll be a good representative.
I may not agree with some of the things that have happened in his personal life, but the issues that he cares about, I care about. And so I think he's a great representative of the party.
Ilina?
I would agree. For me, it's a matter of issues. I think as a husband, he certainly has lacked character. I don't know how the Clintons have rectified that moving forward, but in terms of policy, I agree with him, and he doesn't want to use those policies to make women turn back the hands of time.
It is interesting that Bill Clinton is the one speaking when, from all the moms we've talked to, they want to see Hillary speak. I mean, I think there's a tremendous amount of
That's a good
disappointment among
point.
women and moms that Hillary is not speaking.
Hillary is running the world right now.
She's a little too busy for
tied
the
up.
convention,
More
right?
important.
That's right, Lindsay, you actually talked to moms around the country and they said, boy, we wish Hillary were in this race for president.
They do. They love Hillary Clinton. Her approval rating, of course, is higher than President Obama's. And yes, I think that 2016 is going to be very interesting.
Lindsay, go ahead. I probably only have one or two more.
Okay. Well, I think something that we've talked about, and Linnie, you in particular said this, if President Obama is reelected, you would like to see him get out in the community more, roll up his sleeves, see what it's really like out there. Can you talk about that?
Well, as I said, I just think our story isn't being told. You know, you have to get out in the community. I talked with you about working at the homeless shelter and seeing a lot of families that were previously middle class. But the hope is there. You know, it's still there. Families are doing better. Families are spending more time with each other, which isn't necessarily bad. But I just think Washington, New York, you miss a lot of what's going on among suburban families. And I wish someone would just pay attention to us suburban moms on both sides of the aisle, because we're carrying the load. We really are.
And you all have said that this is a problem with politics in general, that it feels like a bubble in Washington. That's what we keep hearing from women across the board. What are your thoughts on this? What needs to change on Capitol Hill?
We need more women on Capitol Hill. I mean, we need more moms on Capitol Hill. I mean, who understands what a middle-class mom is going through better than a middle-class mom? So I think if we change the makeup of Congress, we'll change issues.
I think beyond that, we need more moms at a local level. Local and state and regional politics matter too. We need our voices heard in our own municipalities, and that's not happening. It's hard for a mom to run. Where do you get your maternity leave? Where are you going to get child care? How are you going to afford it? It's a risk for your family's safety and security and privacy. So there are a lot of things that are obstacles for women to run for office.
Stephanie, you mentioned you're a military family, and you're right. I mean, all the men and women dying by suicide, the PTSD, traumatic brain injury, homelessness, huge problem. Our vets can't get jobs when they're coming back from overseas. What is it that Obama has said, and Michelle Obama, when she's gone out and talked to these organizations, that makes you believe that this is the couple that can provide for our vets?
Well, it's not just what they've said, it's what they've actually done. I mean, last week the president issued an executive order was specifically about veteran suicide. So we're seeing real plans, and they're involving not just the Department of Defense, they're involving all areas of the government. Homelessness is not something that the Department of Defense can fix. And this is an issue that's going to be ongoing. Once the wars are over and everybody's home, that's when the hard work starts.
It's going to get worse.
These are ongoing issues. And they've really put a focus on military families and veterans and getting them the help that they need, and ensuring that continues after the war is out of the spotlight.
Speaking of focusing on families, the Republican Party last week put a huge focus on families. Everyone talked about family. Everyone talked about mothers. Ann Romney appealed directly to mothers, and you all had an interesting take on how she did. Did she make that connection?
Not for me. I'm raising 2 boys, and I have a husband who travels a lot and no family in town. I have no one who comes to clean my house. I have no one to share a carpool with. I have no one to lean on. And it's how my parents raised us too when they came to this country with no help and no support. So her privileges, while I don't begrudge them, they don't speak to me. It's not my life.
What about you, Stephanie?
Same for me. When I listened to her speak and when I listened to her husband speak, it was nice, and I was glad they were addressing mothers, but I felt a little bit patronized because, again, I don't begrudge them their wealth, but I don't relate to them at all. I don't think that they understand what my life is like, or lower middle class women at all.
Well, a couple of things. What family were they referring to? The 1950s family or the family of today? To me, they were referring to the 50s family. Also, there wasn't any diversity there other than the Samoan delegation up front. There was no diversity in the crowd. So again, what family were they referring to when you see the demographics of the country today?
Ilina, you mentioned immigration, making it in America. Julian Castro, his brother Joaquin, the strong woman in their life, their mom. She was an advocate for La Raza, and she said, I dragged them along, took them to the voting booth, and I said to them, you got to understand this process because you have opportunity here. It really speaks to, he's the first Hispanic to give a keynote speech at the DNC. It's not just him, it was the mom that was in his life that really launched him to this point. What do you think that can do for just folks understanding the importance of paying attention to immigration?
I think it's a matter of paying attention to your mom, and I hope that my sons will have that story to tell one day. It's interesting with the Olympics, there was so much coverage of moms supporting their athletes. I would love to see that spun so we see the moms behind the politicians and behind our leaders, because I think that everyone on all sides have a story like that. And I just actually heard them all interviewed on NPR on my drive up here this morning, and it was a great story to share.
The question that everyone in the news is asking this week, of course, is are we better off than we were 4 years ago? What are your answers to that question?
Yes, we are better off. As I said, there's still a lot of people who are out of work, and there's still mortgages, that are problems. But the hemorrhaging had stopped, and still got hope, still moving forward. We realized that things had to be taken care of, and things were taken care of. But I think for myself and most of the families in our community, we're better off.
Military families are definitely better off. There's more support in place to help with mental health, deployments, and reintegration. I can't imagine where we would have been otherwise.
Absolutely, I would say yes. I have my own marketing consulting business, and clients pulled the plug on marketing budgets 4 or 5 years ago, and in the last couple years I've seen an upswing to where I could potentially be working full-time again consulting, so absolutely.
Okay. A lot of hope with this group. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning. This was a great conversation. One thing that really stands out to me after this panel is how many issues are neither Republican or Democratic for moms. They're really across the board. Education, healthcare, the economy. All moms want solutions to these problems. The question is, which candidate do they think is the right man for the job? For CafeMom, I'm Lindsay Ferrier.